Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. You can find us online at gameordie.net and on Twitter at themadman007. I am your host, Ryan Moore. Welcome to another edition of Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan, and today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, this game is kind of a known factor. Everyone's played this game before. So I'm not going to really give a review or anything. I'm just going to talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. And just give my impressions on it more than an actual review because no one needs that. So, starting off, just to give a little background on why I played and why I'm talking about Symphony of the Night is because I never played it really growing up. When it came out, I was actually kind of put off by the weird graphical tales, the ghosting of the main character, Alucard. It was something that really, really bothered me when I was younger. I hated that effect. I still hate that effect. I think it's terrible. It looks lame and makes the game look a lot worse. It reminds me a lot of Metal Gear Solid 2, when they added these weird ghosting trails into the cinematic portions of it. It looks bad. It's a very bad effect. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City. They added these weird ghosting trails to everything, and it just looks muddy. It makes the game look terrible. So I was really put off by it, and also I was never a big horror fan, Dracula and you know the Universal monsters and stuff like that. It never really grabbed me until later in life, and so I just didn't want to play that. So once I actually started playing the game, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really fun, but it took me a while to get into it. I first started out and you play, basically the beginning of Rondo of Blood, or the ending of Rondo of Blood at the very, very beginning of Symphony of the Night. You start out as Richter fighting Dracula, and it was interesting because I kind of knew a lot of that stuff. I've seen those games played before, and so I know Rondo's ending, and I knew Symphony's beginning because I remember picking that game up and playing it tons and tons of times. I played that beginning intro with Dracula probably about maybe 30 or 40 times because it was always my go-to, or one of my go-tos, whenever I was setting up modded Xboxes or emulators. Whenever I was testing out the emulation for a PlayStation, it was one of the games that I always booted up because I knew exactly what it looked like. I knew exactly what it should sound like and play like. So I've played that intro a ton of times. But I started fresh a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, I want to play something new. I want to play something different, something that I haven't played before, but not a big, crazy new game. It wasn't something that I wanted to play, something that just came out. I wanted to play something old, something a little bit more classic, but that wasn't going to require 40 or 50 hours to get into. And so somehow I stumbled upon Symphony of the Night, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever actually played any of the Castlevania games for more than, 15, 20 minutes. Maybe I should give this one a shot. This is the big one that everyone loves talking about. So I started playing it. I got through the terrible voice acting intro, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I got through that part, and I started playing the actual game and really getting into it and really diving deep into what Symphony of the Night actually is as a game. And it's a hack and slash platformer. It threw me for a loop because I had no idea that's what the game really was. I've heard all the stories. I've heard about the inverted castle and all that stuff. And it was something that I was like, you know what? I want to really, really get into this. So I sat down and I set aside, I'd say at least 3 or 4 hours the first night that I played it and I played it to death and I loved it. Getting some of the cards or relics or whatever to allow me to see the hit point damage that I'm getting off of enemies, to be able to see how much damage people are doing to me. That really helped just make me feel like, okay, cool. I know how much damage I'm doing. So this is how much like once you start getting into the flow of the game, it it was so fun. I was having a blast. I had a smile on my face the entire time playing this game, and it was rad. And man, everyone talks about the music in that game, and it is phenomenal for the most part. It is fantastic. You get the CD audio, the Red Book audio for these amazing levels. Every section in that game has a different tune or theme to it. You got the main Castlevania theme. You got the creepy library theme. You got the catacombs theme. You got the tower theme. And it all works very well to build up the atmosphere of that game. That game has such a unique atmosphere. It is dripping with the gothic style of Castlevania and what you think of when you hear the name Castlevania. And I totally get why people like this game. I totally understand it now. It's a really fun game, and the mechanics of the game too, just the hack and slash nature, learning how the enemy attack patterns are, combating those, using different weapons, and that was something I didn't know about at all until I played the game, is that you pick up a ton of different weapons in that game. I've always known Castlevania as like the whip. You have the infamous whip with the Belmonts, and then you have a special attack that, again, with the Castlevania series, this is always something that eluded me until much later on in life, is when you pick up hearts, that's not health. Hearts are special attack. So every time you gain a heart, you use a special attack, you lose that number of hearts. And so you use special attack, you have 50 hearts, and then you got 49, 48, 47. So you basically have 50 times to attack, or whatever it is, whatever number it is. But once I started really getting into the rhythm and the flow of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I really, really enjoyed it. It was so fun to just explore the castle. And that's what I really liked about that game too, is the exploring aspect. You are walking through this entire castle, screen to screen, like an old school arcade game where you have a screen or you have a room and you have to explore it, and you have to go through every nook and cranny to make sure that you're not missing any secret items or secret areas that you unlock. And once you get through that room and you unlock it on the map, incredible. It was so fun to explore until a point. That's the real big issue for me, is that the game was really, really fun, and it was very, very easy for the most part, but there's backtracking, and I've always hated that in games. That's one of the reasons why I didn't pick this game up for so long. I was never really interested in the Castlevania series. I didn't like the Dracula motif or anything like that, but I knew it was backtracking the game. Metroidvania, that term was coined by this game, basically, where you are exploring a space, opening up a map, and then going back through those same areas over and over and over again. And it really, really wore on me, and it really made me go, oh yeah, that's why I don't play these types of games. I don't like Metroidvanias because backtracking isn't fun for me. I like stories, and I want to be able to see new things all the time. Once I've seen an area, it gets really, really boring, and I stop caring. Don't make me stop caring about your game because you got lazy. And that's where this game really lost me at some points. There was some nights that I was playing the game for an hour or two, um, or maybe in 30 minutes or so. And I was just like, ugh, this area again. Ugh. And I just didn't want to play it because I was so bored with going through the same areas. I know exactly where the enemies are. I know what I need to. And I just stopped going to certain areas, or I'd stop fighting every enemy, even though I wanted to level up, which I thought was rad. I didn't know you leveled up in this game. I stopped caring about fighting enemies and getting experience points or getting item drops because I was just so bored, because it was like the 15th or 20th time that I was in that room. And so that kind of bummed me out. It took a lot of the wind out of the sails of the game for me. It's because I was like, I've already been here. I've already seen this. The thing is, when I sit down and play a game, I play through it, and I play through it as much as possible unless I get really, really bored of it and I just stop completely. But I knew this game wasn't super long or super tedious, so I stuck with it. And I really wanted to get everything out of it. I was like, I'm going to play this game and I'm going to 100% it. And you can't just 100% Castlevania. You 200 or whatever percent it. You have to find every nook and cranny, every little secret area, every pickup, and then and unlock and go through every part of the map. So when I was doing that, I was like, all right, well, I know where Dracula's area is, so, well, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to still explore. And I kept unlocking parts of the map that I haven't been to, or finding a secret room, or even, looking online and seeing, oh, there's a secret room here. Let's go there. I would have never known unless I looked it up. That's the thing. There's so many little things and little nuances that unless you've played the game a million times before, you've memorized every little nook and cranny in the game, or you've looked it up online, you're not going to be able to 100% it first time through. And that kind of sucks, because what happened for me is I explored because I knew that you needed to explore the entire map, open it up. So I did. And it took a while. It took a couple extra hours out of my time playing that game just to unlock an extra room or two that had a item drop or nothing at all. And I was just kind of bored of that. And it really just bored me while I was playing the game. And so once I finally uncovered all of the map, did all the extra little things, fought all the extra little bosses or nooks and crannies, I get to Dracula's, chambers, basically. And you fight Richter. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I fought Richter and end credits. And I was like, wow, end credits. After fighting Richter, I thought I was going to fight Dracula. I know I fought him in the beginning of the game, but I thought I was going to fight him again. And so I went through the credits, I stopped playing the game, I put it down, and I kind of looked it up online, and I realized there was an item that I got that I didn't have equipped. And the reason why I didn't have it equipped was because you become so overpowered within the first 45 minutes to hour of that game that every item you pick up doesn't matter. You don't need the special cloak. You don't need the special shield. You don't need the nunchucks or any of the other types of weapons that you pick up, because you're already so overpowered. Every item doesn't matter. There was a time where at the very beginning of the game, there was a little bit of a challenge, and I really liked that. But like I said, about 45 minutes to an hour in, you know every enemy's attack patterns for the most part. You are so powered up and you have so much health that even though you get hit and you have that really hard knockback, doesn't matter, because you have my combo was I used the original sword, and then I used the ballistard, I think, or something like that, the short knife. And that short knife, even though the damage isn't crazy high, is super, super fast. So I can swing with these super powerful weapons, but they're so slow that you usually get hit and you get knocked back and then you take damage and then you have to go and swing again and it takes forever. Your swing takes 2 seconds maybe. Let's say the attack animation for a normal sword is 2 seconds. Well, within that 2 seconds, if you use the secondary attack with the smaller knife, even though the damage is like 18, you can use it 4 times in a row or 4 or 5 times in a row within that 2 seconds. So 18, 18, 18, 18, 18, 18, instead of 24 damage. 24. Like you are able to kill enemies before they even attack you with that very quick short range weapon. And just the weapon design, the weapon the weapon balance is super crazy off in the game. And you're overpowered from pretty much the get-go, and it's like that for pretty much the entire game. So once I figured out that, I needed to equip that item that I didn't use because I didn't think I needed it, because why would I? Because I haven't used any other weapon. I didn't use any health potions. I didn't use any turkeys or steaks or anything. I think I used 1 hot dog or frankfurter in the entire game. And that was a special part, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too. But for the most part, you don't need to use literally any item that you pick up. Every single item is worthless. So once I reloaded my save after figuring out I didn't really quote unquote beat the game, I loaded my save up, I equipped that item, I fought Richter, and I used that item so that I can hit the invisible ball that is now visible, free shaft from Richter's body or whatever, and then go to the inverted castle. The thing that I knew about this. So the inverted castle is pretty infamous because, that's like one of the main things of this game is everyone talks about the inverted castle. So I play the inverted castle, and for the beginning part of it, just like at the very beginning of the game, it felt new, it felt fresh, because they actually did something that I really want to commend Konami for. They didn't take the easy way out. They didn't get lazy. They actually created all new enemies for the inverted castle. Because I was expecting to just see the same old enemies that I've been seeing for 4 or 5 hours and redo the entire castle map just flipped upside down. They at least added new enemies that did create a very good challenge at the very beginning. They're way more powerful, they do a ton more damage, and you really have to learn their attack patterns again. So that was really cool. So I played that, but then I stumbled across the ultimate combo of weapon. You have the shield rod and Alucard's shield. Now, when you play this game, and I didn't know this until I was button mashing, because that's kind of what I do in some games, just messing around, and I got a spell. And I can't remember what spell it was, but I went, oh, cool. I was just doing this button combination, and I'm able to use this or that. And then I kind of started looking it up online later at night while I was not playing, after I finished playing for the night. And I went, oh, there's a couple more spells and stuff. And again, no way to know about these spells unless you input the commands or you look it up online. So you might stumble on 1 or 2 of them, but there's a couple of them where there's no way you would know that input unless you looked it up in a guide or looked it up online. So once I learned all the commands, one of the commands is Soul Steal. So you input the command, and it's a difficult-ish command. I wasn't able to do it every single time for sure. I'm not very good with button commands. Like, it's left, right, and then half circled backwards, and then right again, and then attack. I'm not good with fighting game combos and things like that. So it was really difficult for me to actually get some of those spells down. But once I did, I learned, Soul Steal actually takes health from enemies. So on a boss or something, it totally works. And I felt overpowered then. And then with that Alucard shield and shield rod combo, you do the attack and you whip out your shield, and it's just a quick tap of the B button or A button, whatever hand you equip it to, and you are literally invincible, which killed the game for me. 100% killed it, because it makes you invincible. You can just walk up to any enemy, tap the B button, and they will pretty much instantly die because they're taking damage from the shield. You're getting health back, and if you have the certain other stuff equipped too, you're getting hearts as well. So you're getting special attack, health, and pretty much instantly killing every enemy you come across in the game with a tap of a tap. Not holding down. I mean, you can hold it down. Not holding down or not doing a command or anything like that. You're literally just walking right into a character. You feel invincible because you are. And it just killed the momentum of the game for me. I was super bummed out about it. But it's in the game, so it's not cheating. You know, if the game is going to give me these weapons, if they're overpowered, I'm still going to use them because I'm going to use everything to my advantage to beat and finish this game. So it kind of sucked, and I switched back and forth, every once in a while, but I was like, dude, this shield is freaking, especially once I got to everything that I needed to get to, and then I just wanted to explore. So I started exploring, and I was like, again, I've already been here, so I know all the enemies, and I'm just going to make it nice and easy for myself. It's a cakewalk. So I explored the rest of the castle, and again, I was so bored because I've already been there. Everything's just flipped upside down. Whoop-de-doo. So I do all that, and I get to all the bosses. And each boss, again, because of that shield combo, it breaks the game because it's so overpowered. I'm gaining health from the boss every time I hit it. So every boss, you have like Frankenstein, Medusa, some weird blob character with corpses, a mummy, I think. I barely remember the bosses because they take literally about 2 seconds to defeat each of them. So I just walked up, held B for about 2 seconds, and then killed the boss. Got the, Eye of Vlad, Stomach of Vlad, Ring of Vlad. You collect all these parts of Dracula to resurrect him. So every time I came to a boss, it took me about 2 seconds to finish him off. And then I move on with my merry way, and I explore a little bit more of the castle, uncover the rest of the castle, and then I go to Dracula. Dracula, it's your dad because you're Dracula's son, Alucard, Dracula spelled backwards. And you go through the cutscene and you fight him. And it's the final boss of the game after you've already beat Richter, which was technically the final boss, but you didn't know it. And then you go through the inverted castle, and then you fight all the other monster bosses. The final boss of the game after hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of exploring. And you just hold B and beat him within 3 seconds. And I was just like, come on. That sucks. And again, yes, I know you can unequip that shield and fight him for real, but why would I? I've already seen everything the game has to offer. Dracula is the final boss, and I just want to complete the game and be over with, because again, I'm bored with this game for the most part at this point, because I've been through every single room in the entire game at least 3 or 4 times, uncovering the map both times for the regular castle and the inverted castle. So it was just one of those things where I was just like, this sucks. I'm done with this. So I beat Dracula, and you get the end credits, and then that's the end of the game. And I was like, wow, that was it. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I really liked the game. I had fun for the most part, but boy, they could have tweaked it. They could have fixed it a little bit to make it better. Why, after all these years and, games doing like remasters and all this stuff, why hasn't this game got a fixed version? Why wasn't this remastered? Why wasn't this fixed so that you play the game the way it was intended without having these super crazy overpowered things to where first time through, you're bored within several hours of the game? And that's where I felt like I not cheated because that's the wrong term, but I just felt bummed out. Like, really? That's all there is to this game? That's the game that everyone loses their mind over when they talk about Castlevania? Huh. Because I think Rondo of Blood is a much more interesting game at that point. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. In Symphony of the Night, it has a lot of cool ideas. It's just not very well executed, I think. You get to turn into different creatures in Symphony. You get to turn into a wolf. You get to turn into a bat. You get to turn into mist, which on its face sounds rad, but the wolf literally is used once in the entire game. I used it once and I went, wow, this sucks. And I never used it again. And I 100 all the way fully completed that game. And I used it once at the very beginning when I got it and I went, this sucks. I used the mist when I got it when you need to, but you don't really need to all that often. Only to go through a grate or something maybe about 4 or 5 times in the entire game. And then I use the bat the most often to uncover the map, just flying around for a while. Just in those large expansive rooms or in the outside of the castle when you're in the air, you have to use the bat to uncover the little hidden, or not even hidden, but just uncovered areas of a large map room. So all the creatures and things you can turn into basically are pointless except for exploration. And the only thing that I really did like about the bat was there's this one room where it's all dark and you have to and it spikes on the top and bottom and you have to navigate through this little maze in the room. And it's completely pitch black dark, and so if you don't know what you're doing, you die. But you get a echolocation power, and you just hold the Y button or triangle button, and you go through and you use your echolocation, and it allows you to see a little bit. It's kind of like a mini flashlight. So that was really cool. And then the mist, once you get near the end game, you get the power to turn into mist and cause damage to enemies. So again, this is a game breaker. This makes you invincible. So you turn into mist, enemies can't see you or touch you, and then you run into them and you take damage, you cause them damage. Now, there was one room in particular that I had a real big issue with, and it's the gear clock tower area, where you have all these rotating gears, and it's a very long vertical room, or there's a couple of them. And there's a puzzle in this room, and I like puzzles in games, but this was a badly made puzzle. You basically go into this room area, and there's a gear that you can hit on the left side, kind of near the bottom, and then a gear near the top of the room on the right side that you can hit. And you can hit these, and you have to hit them a certain amount of times, and they'll make a different sound effect. Once they make that different sound effect, it basically unlocks a part of the gate. So you have 2 rooms with 2 gears each, so you have 4 gears to hit all together. And the puzzle is that you have to hit each gear a certain amount of times. Each gear has a different number associated with it. So left bottom gear for the first room is you hit it twice and makes that different sound effect. Top one on the right-hand side, you hit it 13 times. Bottom left on the other room is 8 times. You get the idea. So you're hitting these gears in a different number of times to make that different sound effect to unlock the gate. The thing is, and this is what really pissed me off, is that the sound effect is very, very similar to the sound effect it normally makes. That normally when you hit the gear, it makes a kunk sound. But if you hit it a certain number of times, that sound effect changes from kunk to kink. Like, come on, really? And the fact that you have this audio track that's blaring, and there's no way to change audio levels. There's no way to drop the music out because this is an old school PlayStation game, an old school video game period, and you had no audio options back then. The only audio option is stereo or mono, which obviously everyone does stereo. So there's no option to drop the volume down. So you have this blaring loud music going on while you're trying to listen for very, very similar sound effects changing. On top of all the enemies coming at you. And this room is one of the only rooms in the entire game that has infinite spawning enemies. They're Medusa heads, and they fly in a wave pattern, and there's two different types. There's the normal ones that just cause knockback, and then there's the stone ones that cause knockback and turn you into stone, where you sit in stone and you have to wiggle your joystick or wiggle the D-pad to break free. So, and then there's some enemies, they're floating enemies. I can't remember, there's two different types because inverted castle and whatever. So you're trying to kill these enemies. You're trying to avoid the Medusa heads. You're usually getting hit by the Medusa heads. You're trying to concentrate and keep track how many hits you're making, all while the music's blaring, and you're trying to understand which is it going kunk or kink. And then also you are trying to do this while you're attacking, and your attack has a sound effect attached to it too. So every time I was hitting a thing, it was making a king sound. So I was like, what? How am I supposed to do this? And I spent probably about 20 minutes trying to do this, and I just gave up. I walked away from the game. I went to a different level later on when I picked it back up, or a different area. And then maybe an hour or two later, I came back to it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And so I started figuring out, well, what if I unequip my weapon and just use my fists? Well, when you hit, as far as I can remember, there's no sound effect. So it really did help in that aspect, but there's still all the enemies. There's still all the enemy attack noises. There's still the stone and the knockback. There's still the audio. And you're still trying the music, and then you're still trying to hit it and differentiate between kunk and kink. So I thought that was just a terrible design choice, especially for that room, especially to unlock this secret room. And then I got to the secret room, and then it was like, oh, here's some super underpowered weapons or whatever. So I got super frustrated. But like I said, most of the things in the game are pretty fun, but they're just, maybe it's just because I'm playing it in 2019. Maybe it's because I've already experienced better games, much, much better games, even in that genre at this point. I think it's a good game, and especially at the time, I could totally see why people loved it so much. But there's so much filler in that game. There's so much wasted time going back and forth. Yeah, there are warp rooms, but there's like 4 or 5, and they're spread out so far apart that you're still traversing 10 minutes throughout the level just to get to the warp room, when that same 10 minutes can be just walking to the area that you want to get to in the first place. It doesn't feel like there's enough warp rooms. One thing that really did stand out to me was that there was this area in the game where you have a save room on one side, and then you have what looks like a save room on the other side of this the vertical space. But the save icon is now like glowing purple. And I was like, that's really weird. So I went back, I made sure that I saved in the normal save room, and then I was like, what's going on here? And you find that this is it's a nightmare. You go into a nightmare, and you are Alucard, and you're talking to your mom who's burning at the stake. And if you watch the Castlevania Netflix series, this is all in that very beginning pilot episode and all that stuff. And it's really cool. And I was like, oh, hey, cool. That there's continuity there. They're keeping the same type of storyline. Dracula's wife was burned at the stake by humans, and Alucard is the son of Dracula, and Dracula hates all humans now because they killed his wife. And it was like, oh, this is rad. And then you get through that nightmare scenario and you find out that it's a succubus parading as your mom and all that stuff. And it was really cool. And that stuck with me while playing that game. That's my favorite part of that entire game. It's rad. It's a really cool thing. I wish that there was more to this game like that. That's one 3-minute thing. 3-minute detour in that entire game of like 8-9 hours. That's like that. Everything else is just very generic, very boring, very boilerplate. So I was like, oh man, I really wish there was more like that. Same thing with the dialogue. Now, there's a couple things I don't want to talk about the dialogue, but I was really bummed out to find that there's maybe 3 or 4 minutes of spoken dialogue in the entire game. Everything else is you just running through levels, killing stuff. You meet a girl named Maria like 3 or 4 times maybe, and you converse with her for about 45 seconds each time, if that. And that's pretty much it. And then you talk with your dad, and there's maybe a couple different dialogues with Dracula. But that's about it. There's not a whole lot of actual spoken dialogue in this game. For a PlayStation game that touted, this is a CD, we have real audio, real Red Book audio, and we can hold so much more data that they didn't do a lot of audio. They used it for 15-second crappy compressed computer-generated image of the camera circling around this dark castle that you can barely even see. And again, play it now. It looks awful. All CGI does. CGI is one of the worst things to ever happen in the medium of movies and TV and video, basically, because it will always look outdated minutes after it's created. It always looks terrible, and it will never be better than hand-drawn image or just it not being there. It would be better if it wasn't even in there to begin with, because that probably took millions of dollars to create, and it's something that looks awful by today's standards. Even back then, it was like, oh, this doesn't look very good, and why is this even here? So I really wish that there was more dialogue. I wish there was more cutscenes. I wish there was more story to this game. That's what I was really expecting and hoping for, was that there was a lot of story. You want to know the entire story of Symphony of the Night? The entire story is you are Alucard, Dracula's son, and you are pissed off at your dad, so you go fight your dad. You have a dialogue with him at the very end of the game saying, hey, mom said to love humans, and you say that humans are evil, so you must die. And then that's it. That's pretty much it. You meet Maria and Shaft. Why Shaft? I don't know. And Richter, and you talk for a little bit, but there's no real story there. It's just, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm this person. There's this guy that I'm looking for. If you see him, tell me about him. Okay. Oh, hey, how's it going? Did you find that guy yet? Nope. All right. That's all the dialogue in the entire game. That's the entire story of Symphony of the Night. And it just sucks. It's one of those things where I wish there was more to this game, especially years and years afterwards, hearing how good it is, how amazing it is, how it's the best in the series, and just going, man, for a game that really made me feel like there was a lot of story involved, there's none. There's no story involved. And then we get to the dialogue itself, the voice acting. Yes, there is some abysmal voice acting. It is some of the worst in video game history. I'm not going to really talk about that too much, but it's really bad. Like I said, just the writing itself. I'm sure there was a lot of stuff lost in translation, from Japanese to English translation. because the beginning dialogue with Dracula, what is a man, a miserable pile of flesh and all that stuff. I know that there's some stuff lost in translation, but man, no one said, hey, let's do a different take, because you're putting Dracula even, this is Dracula, the main character of this series, and you're putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Humans! Like, come on. These are, at the time, these were professional voice actors, and a child could have done better. I am baffled by how terrible the voice acting is and the writing. No one read the script before recording, because if any person would read that script who was, and even a remote English speaker would know, this is not the way humans talk. This is not the way humans put emphasis on types of things. So that just bothered me so much. And then, like I said, the music. I wanted to come back to that for a second, because the music for the most part is really, really good. But there is some bad music, especially the credits music. The credits music is some of the most tone-deaf, worst, awful, weirdest choice of music I have ever heard in my entire life. So, if I said to you, what is the end credits music for a game based on Dracula? You would probably think it's some very dark, gothy, creepy, evil music. And you would be super wrong for this game. The end credits for this music is, think, 1992 contemporary smooth jazz with sultry audio. Two ladies singing to each other in a very sultry voice. That is the music that is in Symphony of the Night for the end credits. It is the most off-putting, my jaw dropped when I finished that game for the first time. When I heard the credits music, I was like, what am I listening? Did I rip the wrong audio track for this game? What's happening? And then you go back and you play it on like the 360 or whatever, and they removed it because of stupid licensing issues. And so they changed it to some just dumb generic like MIDI track or something like that. But even that's way better than what's actually in this game. It's so laughably awful. It is the worst credits music I've ever heard in my life. I think it's probably worse than Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus end credit music, which was the garbage death metal of We're Not Going to Take It cover. It is awful. It's so laughably awful. So that is kind of my assessment of Castlevania Symphony of the Night in my experience of playing it. I really did enjoy it. I really liked the way the game was. I just think it needs to be tweaked. Someone, Konami, if they ever make a new video game. And the thing is, too, they've been re-releasing these games. And they've been doing just little tweaks here and there for UI, basically. Instead, for the Xbox, they're putting Xbox commands in and things like that. So if they can do that, if they can actually go into the code and change the UI elements, they can clearly go in and dub or redo some of the audio or translation issues. Clean this game up. It is a good game. At the core of this game, it is a good game. It's not great. I don't think it's a great game, but I think it's a really, really, really good game. It's a solid game, but it needs to be cleaned up a little. And for anyone who has never played it before, kind of like me, I would tell people emphatically, do not try to 100% this game. It is not worth it in the slightest. Play the game how you want to play. Explore when you want to explore. Go tackle the main areas when you want to. Beat Richter. Save it right before you start fighting Richter. And then if you want to get the inverted castle, go afterwards and clean stuff up after you get to the credits for the first time. However you get to the credits, because I think that is a solid game that most people should play. But play it your own way. Don't try to 100% it, because it wasn't worth it for me at all. I regret spending that much extra time, even though it was only a few hours, a handful of hours, to replay, or not even replay, but do the inverted castle and things like that. It just wasn't fun enough to warrant my time with that. It's not that it didn't respect my time, because I think it did for the most part. It's just that I think it wasn't worth it. So if you are listening and you've never played Castlevania Symphony of the Night before, I would say play it. It's worth it. Go get the Xbox 360 version or the PlayStation 4 version or whatever. The new one where it has Rondo and Castlevania Symphony of the Night in it. Go play the game, but don't 100% it until after you beat it and you've assessed how much you really do like the game. If you really, really did love it and you go, man, I want more of this, then by all means, go play more of it. There's a lot more to do. Uncover every part of the map. Get all the special items. Go to the inverted castle. Play the upside down castle and uncover the map all over again. I'm sure you'll have a great time, but only after you finish the game and you assess, hey, I'm really liking this. Because like I said, for me, it wasn't worth it at all. I regret my time playing it more than finishing it that first time, because it was just like, I guess I can talk about it a little bit better now. And that's the reason why I did, because I was like, well, I have the weekend to myself and I have nothing else really better to do. So I guess I'll just keep playing this. But at that point, I put on a podcast. I was over the music because I've already heard it a million times. I was over the levels and areas because I've already been through it a million times. So I put on a podcast while playing it at that point and just kind of ran through the rest of the game because I already beat it. I already got to the credits. Might not have been the greatest ending in the world, but the ending, the real ending, quote unquote, not that great either. So that's my take on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I'm really excited, though, that I did play it. I am able to talk about it, and now I'm actually going to go and play Rondo of Blood and finish that. So it did get me into the Castlevania series a lot more, and it's getting me to play more Castlevania games, and maybe I'll do the first 3 again, and go back and play the original Nintendo versions, because I have a better appreciation for it in that series. And maybe I'll pick up, Lords of Shadow 1 and 2 again, because I put a couple hours into the first Lords of Shadow game, and it was fine, but it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. So with that, that's going to conclude this podcast, and I'm going to do you all a favor by playing you the Castlevania Symphony of the Night end credits, because everyone deserves to hear how awful this is. Don't go and play and beat this game just to hear the end credits. I'll play it for you right now. So, with that, I send you off, and I will be back soon with another podcast. And in the meantime, enjoy Castlevania Symphony of the Night end credits.
the sun, just like the sun. When my day's done, sometimes I don't like the person I've become. Is the enemy within or 1,000 men? Should I walk the path my words so bad I have? Is someone testing me every day I live? Well, the best in me is all I have to give. I can't pretend. I can't pretend. I am the wind, and I don't know if I will pass this way again. All things must end. Goodbye, my friend. Think of me when you see the sun or feel the wind.